And I'm not a good actor, so I'm not sure how much emotion I can accurately convey here, but here it is. The judge. Mr. Barnett, are you with us? You may be muted, Mr. Barnett. We may have lost Mr. Barnett, who is obviously the reason we're all here this morning. Pause. The courtroom deputy. Mr. Barnett. The defendant, Mr. Barnett. Yes, the judge. Thank you for joining us again. Good morning, Mr. Barnett. This is Judge Cooper. Can you hear me? The defendant. Good morning. Yes, I can hear you. The judge. Okay, just like last time, we would obviously usually do this in person, but due to the pandemic, we are proceeding remotely. Are you okay with proceeding via telephone this morning? The defendant. Yes, that's fine. The judge. Okay, very well. If you could mute your phone now, unless we need to hear from you, that would be very helpful. The defendant. Okay, I'll mute now. The judge. Thank you, sir. Then the judge turns to the prosecutors. He says, all right, Ms. Dorman or Ms. McClain, where are we? One of the prosecutors, Nicole McClain, says, yes, Your Honor. And so at this time, I believe there's going to be a change in counsel in this case, which means the defendant is actually changing his defense lawyers, and they're in the middle of that process happening. Prosecutor says, I had sent over to the defense lawyer a proposed protective order in this case for discovery that he was going to share with his client and speak to his client about. We've provided some discovery informally in this case, specifically through the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arkansas. The government is still undertaking this massive effort to gather discovery in this and all of the Capitol riot cases. What the government is going to ask for today is for a continuance of 60 days to gather discovery, to discuss the protective order, and for the new attorneys in the case to get up to speed on what has been done. The judge. And the last time we were here, no plea offer had been extended. Is that still the case? Prosecutor. That is still the case, Your Honor, and that is still the case in all January 6th cases, meaning no January 6th arrestees have been offered a plea deal by the government. The judge says, okay, just out of curiosity, what is the government's estimate of the guidelines range for the dangerous weapons charge here? Have you done that calculation? There's then some discussion between the judge and the prosecutors on how much time in prison the defendant might ultimately be looking at if he's convicted on the dangerous weapons charge he is facing. That resolves like this. The prosecutor. For the 1512, it's going to be the highest offense level here. I believe it's going to be a base offense level of 14. The maximum sentence on the 1512 is a 20-year term of imprisonment and a $250,000 fine. The judge. Okay. All right. Just trying to figure out what we've got. And he turns to defense counsel. Counsel, May 4th at 11 a.m. Does that work for you? Defense lawyer. One moment, Your Honor. Yes, that works for me. Yes. And then up pops the defendant. He unmutes himself. Defendant, I'm sorry. I need a sidebar with my counsel. That doesn't work for me. I need a sidebar. A different defense lawyer stands up. Richard, this is Stephen Metcalf. The defendant, I need a sidebar. I need a sidebar. Defense lawyer Stephen Metcalf. Listen, Richard, this that we're talking about now, this is a date wholly separate from any application for bail for you. So just hang tight. We're going to hash out everything we need to with the court right now. There are a couple of other issues that we need to address, and we will speak to you as soon as you give us a call back today. Did you hear me? The defendant. Yes, I understand, but I've been here a long time. I've been here a month, and they're going to set it for another month, and everybody else is getting out. Defense lawyer. Richard. The judge, okay. Defense lawyer, I'm asking you to just hang tight. We're going to address a couple of other matters. The defendant, I don't agree with this date. It's not fair. First defense lawyer, so, Mr. Barnett, the judge, all right, counsel, let me cut this short, okay? The defendant, I'm on the phone. I can't have a sidebar with my attorney. It's not fair. The judge, counsel, why don't we take 5? The defendant, we need to start doing this in person. Remember, the defendant just consented to doing this not in person when the judge asked him directly at the start of the hearing, but now he says, we need to start doing this in person. The judge, Mr. Barnett, hold on, sir. We're going to take 5. And one of you, meaning one of the defense lawyers, you can step into another room and contact Mr. Barnett. Is that possible? The defendant, it is possible. We've done it before. The judge, hold on, sir. Hold on, hold on. Here's what we're going to do. The court will set a date for a further status hearing on May 4th at 11 a.m. The defendant, oh, no, sir. The judge, in the meantime, sir, if you're counsel, the defendant, I have a phone number right here. He can call me. He's done this before. I've got a phone number right here. He can call me on. The defense lawyer, judge, I'll take the number. The judge, All right, take the number, speak to your client, and then we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. The defendant, the government keeps dragging this out and letting everybody else out. Defense lawyer, Richard, meaning the defendant, Richard, I'm advising you to just stop. The judge, counsel, step out and call your client. The court goes into recess. Now, it is not reflected in the official transcript that we have obtained, but one reporter who was monitoring the hearing today for the Daily Beast swears that at that point in the proceeding, as they were going to recess, the defendant also screamed, forgive me, quote, "This has been a bunch of crap." The defendant in question here is this fellow who you will recognize from the immediate aftermath of the January 6th attack. This is the guy who mugged for the camera with his feet up on the desk in Nancy Pelosi's office, who outside the Capitol bragged to reporters about what he had stolen from Pelosi's office. After the attack, after which he walked free and went back home, local law enforcement in Arkansas declined to go arrest him. They just got in touch with him and gave him time to come turn himself in on his own schedule. When FBI agents arrived at his home in Arkansas with a search warrant, he told them that he had moved all of his guns out of the house and that they wouldn't find anything in his house to incriminate him because he told the officers, quote, "I'm a smart man. You ain't gonna find nothing out there. I assure you, I'm a smart man." Among the things officers did find at his house was the empty packaging for the 950,000-volt cattle prod-style stun gun that he allegedly wore into the Capitol. Oh, I guess that is something that they might find there. The FBI affidavit in his case points out that in some of the photos of him reveling in Nancy Pelosi's office, you can actually see the top of that 950,000-volt stun gun there on his left hip, tucked into his belt. I'm a smart man. You won't find nothing. His name is Richard Barnett. He has been in custody awaiting trial. He's been charged with 7 different crimes in federal court. Now he is in the process of getting himself new lawyers. Apparently didn't like the old ones. As I said, he's been charged with 7 different crimes, including a weapons charge that we learned in court today could put him in federal prison for up to 20 years. We also learned in federal court today from his tantrum that he is absolutely convinced that he shouldn't be in jail anymore right now while he awaits trial. He says it is not fair. He thinks he should be let out. After the judge called this 5-minute recess today so he could try to get a hold of himself, his lawyers came back into the proceedings with the judge and calmly agreed to the next date that the judge had proposed in his case, the next status hearing in his case. The lawyers will file something in the meantime to try to get him out of jail while he's awaiting trial. That's actually a separately adjudicated matter. But as of now, he is very upset about his 1 month or so that he has been in federal custody awaiting trial. Again, he's potentially facing 20 years in prison. He's very, very upset, uncontrollably upset today that he's been in jail even this long. Tonight, CNN's Evan Perez reports that federal investigators are, quote, examining records of communications between members of Congress and the pro-Trump mob that attacked the U.S. Capitol, as the investigation moves closer to exploring whether lawmakers wittingly or unwittingly helped the insurrectionists. The data gathered so far includes indications of contact with lawmakers, meaning contact between the rioters and lawmakers in the days around January 6th. It seems like what the investigators maybe have so far is metadata, meaning records that show calls and maybe texts between members of Congress and the rioters. Metadata showing that it happened at such and such a time on such and such a date, potentially even where the phones were located when those communications happened on and around January 6th. As to the content of those calls and texts, though, it sounds like investigators aren't looking at the content of those communications yet. Quoting Evan Perez tonight, quote, should investigators find probable cause that lawmakers or their staff aided the insurrectionists, they could seek warrants to obtain the content of the communications. Quote, so far, investigators haven't found evidence that members of Congress knowingly aided or were involved in the insurrection, but the FBI has seized devices belonging to alleged rioters and has found communications that show connections that investigators plan to further examine.